Behind every success story, there's always a little heartwarming tale. In this case, it's a racehorse who won't go anywhere without his right-hand man.
He stands along in front of him, in fact, in the box at the races, and he gives him a lot of support.
It's Huckleberry's calming influence on a headstrong Cousin Woll that has proven dynamite at the track.
Cousin Woll got to the lead in the centre. Admiral's Honour's coming with matchless Cousin Woll. Cousin Woll got the money.
He's been a handy horse, like many of them, with an ounce of luck. Things might have been different.
Trainer David Hughes is constantly checking the gelding's feet. They've long struggled to cope with the pressure of racing, and the former real estate agent knows tomorrow's rich Newmarket handicap could be his best bid for a shot at the big time.
It'd be the best race we've been in, and certainly would enjoy the success, yes.
But Newcastle's chances of winning the hometown feature copped a knock this morning. The only other local runner entered, the Chrisleys trained Hidden Wonder, will be saved for Saturday's Group 1 Coolmore Classic instead. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
From the old to the new. After 52 years in this New Lambton building, the Newcastle Theatre Company is starting a whole new act.
We have the theatre next door, which was originally bought by the theatre company in the 1960s. We did as much as we could with it over the years. It was beyond redemption. We couldn't do anything more with it.
So work got underway on renovating the space. 6 years on, this is the result.
We've now increased our audience capacity by half as much again, so we've now got a 147-seat theatre here.
The company's newest play, Trelawney in the Wells, opens tonight. Meanwhile, a very Australian production is showing at the Civic Theatre.
The Exchange is a play about a pub in the outback of Australia. It has a go at bar regulars.
The Exchange runs until Saturday. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Lisa Mondi is a lover of water and a lover of life. This vision is from an upcoming documentary on the Port Stephens to Great Lakes Marine Park. Yesterday afternoon, the 24-year-old had to be airlifted to John Hunter Hospital after being mauled by a shark just off Jimmy's Beach. The savage attack left her with gouges to her face and neck, while her left arm was nearly bitten off. She remains in intensive care, but is tonight in a stable condition.
After 15 hours of pretty intensive surgery, that she's stable and they're happy with it. She's obviously heavily sedated, and it'll be a while, I would imagine, before she gets woken up.
Today, whale-sized well-wishers adorned her hometown of Nelson Bay. Those who know her best don't believe the snorkelling instructor would blame the shark.
She loves all animals, and especially sharks and dolphins and whales, so I'm sure she wouldn't, wish any shark any harm.
Today, there was some speculation that this could be the shark responsible for the attack. The large creature was photographed swimming close to the beach at nearby Hawk's Nest just 2 weeks ago.
We have heard of that one hanging around there, so, and with the attack a couple of years back, so most likely the same guy.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
"6 a.m. on the New England Highway, and even in the dark, it's not hard to see the problem. The frustrating crawl starts at Greeter and continues until after Singleton.
It just seems to be getting worse and worse. If you pick the wrong time of day, it's like you spend 10 minutes out here waiting to get across this road. It's crazy.
Most of the vehicles are heading for mines around Singleton and Muswellbrook, and thanks to the heavy traffic, an hour's commute easily becomes 2. Making matters worse, many drivers are at the end of a 12-hour shift or heading to one.
I got mates at work, live at Cessnock, and they get to work half an hour early just so they don't have to put up with traffic.
Yeah, there's too much traffic on the highway now. We need a bypass because you just can't move.
The morning peak hours now over, but come 4 or 5 o'clock, the traffic jams will be back. There are fears the situation will only become worse when traffic from the New Hunter Expressway funnels into Singleton. The local member says a bypass hasn't been on the state government's radar.
It's also off the agenda at Muswellbrook, and an incoming coalition government will put them both firmly back on the agenda. It's obvious that it's necessary already.
Independent candidate Tim Duddy also supports a bypass, but says a short-term solution is needed.
We need to plan how our workers are going to get here. We need to look at the rail options for freight.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Another day, another united front from the coalition, this time on Labor member Jodie McKay's turf. And it was all about spruiking a $25 million commitment for the University of Newcastle to help it set up the business and law faculty in the CBD.
The Premier offered $10 million to the university, and that was a very welcome announcement. This is $15 million more.
But the location of the press conference outside the post office was apparently not an indication of where the money could be spent.
We're certainly not suggesting a particular place for the CBD campus of the university to be established.
Also raising questions about the election promise were comments by local candidate Tim Owen suggesting another university could be on the cards for the city.
It was an informal approach that came to us that basically said, would we be interested in another university coming to the city as part of your vision to make this a university and an arts city? I reiterate the $25 million that we are putting forward today is directly for the University of Newcastle.
If there is another university that they are in fact in discussions with to come into our CBD, then they owe it to the people of Newcastle to be transparent about who that is.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
We will spend any money that comes to the Royal Flying Doctor on equipment. Equipment for our 54 aeroplanes, for dental equipment, for the medical chests that we put in most of the outback stations.
We've been seeing the new grandstand transform from the roadside, but now we can take you inside. Construction workers everywhere, bare concrete. It's hard to believe, but this grandstand will be open to the public for the Newcastle Knights' first home game in 2 weeks.
90% of the seating will be available, so we're talking about a capacity of some 30,000 on the 3rd of April.
This is the bones of the main concourse. Even without the flashy finishes, you can see the innovation.
The water actually gets captured off the roof and captured in tanks, and that gets used to flush the toilets and the like.
The bar and food stalls have been set back, allowing foot traffic to pass through unhindered. And this gaping hole will be the main entry to the stand, straight from the car park. Up on the corporate area, things are looking closer to completion, boasting extra room for special guests and functions and the all-important coaches boxes. Translucent ceilings allow more natural light into the top level, but nothing can beat the view from up here, the upper concourse of the 12,500-seater. The Eastern Grandstand itself is relatively new. It, of course, is called the Andrew Johns Stand. The question now, what will the new one be called?
At this point, we're just calling it the Western Stand.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
It looked like business as usual at Knights training this morning. There was one key element missing, skipper Kurt Gidley, and the fullback will also be a no-show this weekend when the team tackles North Queensland.
Yeah, no, Gidley won't be playing. He's still pretty sore on his back and he's probably going to take at least another couple of days to get himself sorted out.
The injury was sustained during the Knights' big win over Penrith last Sunday.
He's actually getting a cortisone today and he'll be off his feet for a couple of days before he looks like training early in the week.
It means coach Rick Stone has been forced into a juggling act to fill the position. Shannon McDonald will step up.
Yeah, Shannon McDonald will play fullback. Obviously Cameron Serrato's been named and he'll play as well. And Ben Rogers will take his place on the bench.
McDonald, for one, isn't fazed.
Mate, played about 54 first grade games now, so it's just another game. I'm not too worried about trying to fill someone's spot.
Isaac De Gois, Neville Costigan and Kurt Gidley are big losses for our team. But yeah, really confident that with Shannon McDonald, Cameron Serrato and Ben Rogers, we've got enough quality replacements.
And the Knights know they'll need quality against the Cowboys on Saturday.
Oh mate, they have a big forward pack, so we're going to have to handle that. And with Thurston running the show, you never know what you're going to get.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Stoked. I mean, there's a lot of good girls in the field, and having Sal in that heat, it's good to surf against her because she's one of the best.
Race calling has long been a man's world, but one lady is making her voice heard. Victoria Shaw is Australia's only female caller.
Each race day presents something new, it's exciting and it's great to be a part of it all. And the opportunity to witness some wonderful horses, some great riding ability from Australian jockeys.
Today's Newmarket doubled as a day for the commentators, but even they admitted it was really all about the horses. And one man in particular, mining magnate Nathan Tinkler's racing venture, the Paddington Farm Syndicate, fielded horses in 6 races, but the man himself wasn't present to see So Anyway line up in the Newmarket. She sat in 4th for the majority of the race and made her move in the final stretch of the 1400 metre handicap. But not even the crowd could get her across the line first. Keepin' the Dream paid $34, while So Anyway returned $2.80. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Half a world away from home, most of these Japanese students and their teachers have endured a week of uncertainty since tsunami swept into their home province of Kesanuma. Less than half have been able to contact family. The 45 students and 3 teachers have been attending schools in Maitland and Newcastle, and despite efforts by their host communities to soften the blow and even extend their stay, it was time to go.
My understanding is that naturally enough, the students were very keen to be reunited with their families, which is entirely understandable under the current circumstances.
This morning they were on their way via Hong Kong to Tokyo, some to be reunited with family, others to be met by local officials to be bussed and billeted back home.
Concerns have been raised. It's been taken up by the Honourable Sharon Grierson, the Honourable Kevin Rudd, the Japanese Embassy, the Japanese Consul General, the officials at Miyagi Prefecture and at Kesennuma City Council. Everyone's worked together on this to try and make sure that the best possible outcome will be achieved for these students.
Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
It's a policy designed to give new direction to the hunter's water supply.
This is a way forward for the hunter that will save on the environment, it will save on household water bills, and it will save on the economy.
And the Greens say eliminating 2 big projects is the best place to start.
We want to make sure that that doesn't include desalination and it doesn't include Telegra Dam.
They've also promised big money to promote water-saving programs such as rainwater tanks.
You can spend just $44 million, which, as we know, is only a tenth of the cost of Telegra, a 20th the cost of the desal plant, and you can achieve pretty much the same kind of water security.
While Telegra Dam and desalination are designed to guarantee the hunter's water in a drought, the Greens say their water-saving measures will provide just as much water security.
A combination of water recycling, the water savings measures and drought response measures are absolutely guaranteed to get the hunter through any drought that you can imagine happening.
With that kind of package of things, that yes, we can provide an adequate level of drought security and water security for the region.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
This vision was recorded by Tracy and David Lowe 3 weeks ago. At Bennett's Beach, close to where Wednesday's shark attack occurred, the family was just about to enter the water.
We was very close. We were seconds before actually diving in. David thought it looked clear and fine, and only just purely by coincidence I saw a moving shadow.
It was just 20 metres from the shore in shallow water.
We couldn't see the size of it while it was choosing to be under the water. It wasn't until it actually elevated itself and you could see the size of its fin that you realise it was such a big animal there.
Today, swimmers braved the waves at that same beach.
It was a bit scary. We were looking around for sharks all the time. I was a bit scared of the waves.
Others weren't so game.
There's not a chance of me getting in the water today.
I wouldn't personally. I mean, I'm terrified.
This is Jimmy's Beach, where Lisa Mondi was attacked 2 days ago. Subsequent tests by a shark biologist of the attack pattern and bite marks have confirmed that the creature responsible was indeed a great white. That beach remains deserted. Ms Mondi remains at John Hunter Hospital in a stable condition. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
The crowd rolled in early and knew exactly what it wanted to see. The baby animals again proved a big attraction. Packing the small shed, lots of kids keen to get up close and personal with some very cute new friends. These calves sure loved the attention, as did the cutest pigs around and these squirmy newborns.
What have you got there?
A duck, a guinea pig.
What does it feel like?
Feels soft.
Do you want to take it home?
Yes.
The not-so-cuddly and the not-so-small also drew a crowd. A taste of the country came to the city courtesy of these heifers, and who can forget the rides? There are some tame ones even the adults can safely enjoy. The ones that teach you a valuable lesson not to text and roll. And then there's the ones that just make your stomach churn.
How was that?
It was really good.
Yeah, it was all right.
It was good.
All that fun makes a girl hungry, and you just can't come to the show without stopping off and shelling out the cash at the Showbag Pavilion, where there's something for everyone, as long as Dad can hold all the loot. When it gets too much, you can always sit down or dance. One of the new attractions this year, Skills on Show, where you can learn how things are made, enter TV land and even learn how to drive a train. If old world charm is more your thing, there's always the jousting demonstrations showing how things were done way back in the day.
The liquor industry has controlled government. It has controlled opposition. Tens of millions of dollars have bought favours.
Following his performance in the round of 64, Merryweather's Jesse Adam provided hope he could be the first local to win the men's event at Surfest. Unfortunately for him, the curse continues. A heat score of 12.4 this morning, simply not enough to advance. Similar problems for Indigenous Classic winner Russell Maloney, who missed out by less than half a point. In contrast, Coffs Harbour's Heath Joske made light work of the sloppy conditions. An 8.8 and an 8.2 had the judges in a spin.
Really messy and it's pretty average, but I suppose there's still waves out there and you get lucky. I got lucky and got a couple that ran off for me and still had some nice sections.
Fellow Coffs local Jake Sharp wasn't lying down on the job either. He wrapped up his heat with his opening 2 waves, then, just for good measure, scored a 9.5 with his final ride.
I was watching Heath and I seen his total and I guess I wanted to beat his total, so hopefully I did.
Defending champion Glenn Hall easily disposed of Nick Coughlin from Port Stephens, then sent a warning to his rivals.
People ask if I feel pressured or something, but I definitely don't feel that. I've probably done the opposite. I feel a bit more confident, really. So, yeah. I don't know, it's done something like that, so see what happens.
The event continues tomorrow, while the women's final should run around midday. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Over the years, Nathan Stewart has dominated the Newcastle Triathlon. This Sunday, he'll use the event to gauge his fitness as he prepares for the gruelling Port Macquarie Ironman in May, which involves a 3.8k swim, 180k bike leg and a 40k run.
I don't even know what form I'm in or anything. I could come out on the weekend and win, I could come out and come 10th. I've got no idea. I'm hoping, the first one. But yeah, I haven't had a look at the list. I'll just be getting on and going.
The 32-year-old took a year off racing but couldn't stay away any longer.
At first, I just had put a lot of weight on that and I was just getting, get a bit of weight off and that. My son was ribbing me about me weight and a bit embarrassed of his dad, and then, I started back training with a few of the guys.
Depending on conditions, the swim leg for the main race will be held off Nobby's Beach for the first time, which will only increase Stewart's chances of winning the men's event. Sunday's race will also feature John DeMandel, the man with only 20% of his sight, who completed a 12-hour endurance bike ride in February. Incredibly, he'll also attempt the Olympic course. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Did a little bit with Colts, but yeah, first time in the senior squad, which is good. So thoroughly looking forward to it, and yeah, just happy to be a part of the team. Yeah, it was shattering, to be honest, but you know, there's not a lot we can do now. Just look forward to this year and hopefully don't make the same mistake twice, I guess.
It's about more than just harping on about climate change. Green jobs, businesses and products are all being highlighted at Newcastle's Smart Energy Expo, with organisers also all for Australia's carbon tax.
Whilst there might be fear and hysteria put around by some about increases in electricity prices, which will come as a result of a price on carbon, but you can actually have reducing bills while prices are going up by using electricity more efficiently at home.
Newcastle University's Liam Phelan issued a dire warning to crowds, saying increasing electricity bills are just the start of new financial burdens.
We are now in a position where we can attribute blame for extreme weather events to climate change.
And that means protecting our livelihoods against floods, cyclones and heat waves could become more problematic.
Well, the difficulty is that if extreme weather events such as the floods that we had in Queensland become more frequent, then insurance will become more expensive.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
There's an amazing amount of artistic talent about, so why wouldn't we sort of try and unearth that and get that sort of going for while the best surfers in the world are surfing across the road.
Having overcome the highly rated Sally Fitzgibbons in the semis, Coco Ho took plenty of confidence into the decider. A 7.3 on her first wave set up an intimidating scenario for her American rival, Courtney Conalog. With the best conditions of the contest on offer, both girls waited patiently for the right wave, but Coco's opener proved the difference.
I definitely paddled out and just waited for the best waves and made sure to make them count.
The 19-year-old then revealed her friends deserve some of the credit for her first win in Australia.
It's been a really tough week. I mean, I was contemplating going home like midway through the event because my grandma's sick, but everyone was like, come on, stay and surf for her, so I'm glad that I came off with the win and I can go home happy.
In the men's event, top seed Taj Burrow lived up to his reputation, despite the fact he'd never surfed the Merriweather break. A rare barrel was backed up by a 7 and an 8-point ride as he demolished Indonesia's Dede Suryana. Burrow endeared himself to the locals after snapping his board and chose to sit out the last 5 minutes rather than risk his spare.
It's my best board I've had in years, so I didn't even want to take it out. I just kind of let Dede try and get the 9 that he needed, but fortunately for me, he didn't get it.
In other heats, Bede Durbidge cruised into the next round, hammering Byron Bay's Garrett Parks. Wallaby Point's Ben Dunn is also through. He was joined late this afternoon by Adrian Buchan from the Central Coast, who overcame Port Macquarie's Mick Campbell. Jake Sylvester rarely lacks support at home events, but even some special locals turned up hoping to see him advance to the round of 16. Going up against Thomas Woods from the Gold Coast, the Merriweather teenager waited patiently for waves, in contrast to his tactics in the final of the Pro Junior. When he finally got going, he made the most of his opportunities, putting together plenty of moves to score 3 6-point rides. Woods initially struggled, but saved his best for last, pulling a 7.8 out of the bag. Sylvester then appeared to have done enough to regain the lead, but the judges left him short by less than a point.
I think I surfed my best and I got the waves, but I guess I just got out-surfed in the end.
Jake was the last man standing from the Hunter, meaning the dream of a local winning the men's event is over for another year.
Instead of pressure, I felt more support than pressure with all the people down here watching me and stuff, but I would have liked to have got through a couple of heats and kept the local flag flying, but as always next year, I guess.
No luck for the locals in the women's draw either, with former champion Philippa Anderson eliminated in the round of 12 by eventual winner Coco Ho.
A suburban Bolton Point home that overnight became a crime scene. 2 brothers went in, only one came out alive.
An altercations occurred there with another male person, and as a result a 42-year-old male suffered a fatal gunshot wound to the chest.
The victim, James Nolan, a labourer and father of one. As police looked for a weapon and talked strategy to track down the killer, neighbours told of their horror.
I couldn't see anything because it was so dark, but I heard a man crying. And he was just saying, he's dead.
About 10 to 9, big bang, fireworks, that's what I thought it was, and yeah, very loud.
Mid-morning, police widen their crime scene to include the entire street. They're trying to determine what brought the victim here and why. The house had its own camera security system and signs which suggested visitors weren't welcome.
At this stage I've got no comment to make on that. Our forensic police are in there at the moment, and we'll look at all things there and investigate things and take it from there.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
The build is 2012-2013 with students due to start in Madawi in a high school in 2013.
When the police arrived, they were actually looking for another body because there was one missing, and we thought it was the driver, but in actual fact the bloke in the back seat was the driver.
So he'd been pushed back there because of the force?
Because of the force of the crash, yeah. The car was just a mangle.
The men's final was barely seconds old when Tom Whittaker dropped into a solid wave, apparently unaware his rival Dion Atkinson was in the priority position. The judges quickly penalised Whittaker for interference, meaning his highest wave score of the heat would be cut in half, leaving the Sydney surfer with a massive mountain to climb. Atkinson wasted little time establishing a healthy lead. With few workable rides to choose from, he still managed to notch up 2 5s and a 6. Whittaker tried to respond, but time after time the waves simply didn't materialise. In the end, the interference call proved the difference, as the 24-year-old from Adelaide walked away with the crown.
In the first event I went in this year, I actually finished second in Brazil, so I mean to have a first and a second in my first 2 events, it's a pretty dreamy start, and yeah, I'm over the moon.
As for Whittaker, he was gracious in defeat.
I didn't even know I had an interference until I walked up the beach just after the event. Sorry to the crowd for letting down the final a little bit. It was an awesome week, great waves, and congrats to Dion, he surfed well.
The interference in the final wasn't the only hair-raising event. Local surfer Paige Haggerston had her locks chopped off by Bede Durbidge to raise money for cancer research, while earlier in the day, Taj Burrow had his heat wrapped up before a controversial late call of interference knocked him out of the contest. Nathan Stewart has won the Newcastle Triathlon so many times he was always going to be a marked man. The pink hat didn't help his cause. Organisers were forced to shift the swim from Nobby's to the harbour, and that played into the hands of Josh Hollard. Stewart eased into third, with Hollard opening up a 1-minute break before the 40k bike leg. As the pack headed for King Edward Park for the first of 5 trips, the young gun was giving it everything. Stewart seemed to be cruising even though he was closing the gap. By lap 2, the former champion hit the front, although Hollard was still pushing hard. As the chasers continued their charge around the course, Stewart was off the bike with a 4-minute advantage. Following a year off, the 32-year-old was concerned about his form in the run, but the final 10Ks proved a formality as he warmed up for Port Macquarie with a win at home.
This was a good gauge for fitness because you don't get to draft much or anything on this course. It's 5 times through King Edward, and it's a hard course and it suits me. And it was a really good fitness gauge. It's given me a lot of confidence for 6 weeks' time.
In the women's event, Canada's Julianne Lacroix recorded a personal best time to claim the title.
The bike course was really slippery and it's my worst leg, so I was a little bit scared on the bike course, but the swim was pretty good.
And in a remarkable effort, blind competitor John DeMandel finished the Olympic course in 2 hours and 51 minutes.
What this will enable the club to do is get some fencing around the ground and upgrade the amenities here. It'll provide a long-term benefit for the club and a long-term social benefit down here in Windale.
Heart disease is a killer, especially here in the Hunter, where mortality rates are the second highest in New South Wales.
The Hunter tends to score low on health survival because we've got such a high proportion of people who engage in risk behaviours.
In an effort to curb that trend, experts are renewing the push for changes to behaviour, including quitting smoking, exercising more and eating less saturated fat.
We're doing it but very slowly, and it's differential. What we know is that the upper socioeconomic class, those people who are well educated, are more likely to reduce those things.
Professor Rob Sanson-Fisher says it's important changes made by individuals are supported by changes in what's known as non-health areas.
We could encourage people to use public transport more, for example, therefore they have to walk more. We could increase the number of people who achieve high levels of education.
Meanwhile, the Heart Foundation says Hunter residents are more confident about what to do in the event of a heart attack following last year's awareness campaign. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Good crowds and lucky with the weather, which was very important. We had a brilliant show. It's probably the best we've had in many, many years.
Any rubbish which goes out for collection over the next couple of months could be scrutinised, with 1,000 households randomly selected as part of the survey.
They'll be bagging it at the curbside and then they take it out to Summerhill Waste Management Facility to actually sort through all those contents.
It's being carried out by Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Cessnock and Maitland councils and aims to improve waste services as well as gauge the success of recent recycling campaigns.
We'll be looking for how much actual recycling is still contained in the general waste bins.
The results will be compared to those from a similar survey carried out more than 2 years ago.
Last time it identified that about 47% of what's in the general waste bin can either be recycled or is green waste. So that's helped guide our strategy going forward.
As part of that strategy, Newcastle Council will soon offer a larger 360-litre recycling bin. It's also introducing a green waste bin from July. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
It looks and sounds like a boys' club. But the girls love it too.
Well, I've been riding since I was 16, so the thrill's probably gone, but it's a lifestyle, definitely.
Even black's optional here, but to be a Ulysses member, organisers say there's one criteria.
The minimum age to join is 40 years.
More than 3,000 members have started setting up in Newcastle for their AGM. we're told they'll eventually get down to business. They've come from everywhere for this meeting.
I've come from Watford, just outside of London.
And why, we're still not sure. From what we can gather, it's just about living the dream.
Well, you know, we got to grow old disgracefully, you know, we can't grow old respectfully.
And you know what they say, if you can't beat them, join them. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Barry O'Farrell, welcome to Northern New South Wales. With 5 days until the state election, the Coalition's projected primary vote sitting around 50%. You have repeatedly said you don't take any votes for granted, but you must be feeling confident.
Well, confident going into the week, but confident that we've got the plans that can fix the state, the team that can fix the state, that we're ready to do the job. But knowing that unless 4.5 million people across the state decide that's what's going to happen, we could wake up on Sunday with a Labor government.
One of your big policy announcements has been this infrastructure fund, which will be especially important, I guess, for regional New South Wales. Where will that money be used?
Well, there are two infrastructure funds. There's Restart New South Wales, which is for a statewide infrastructure strategy. That's money that will be used for roads, for rail, for ports, for other economic infrastructure that we need. It'll prioritise, it'll have a program that we can work our way through however long we're in government, and hopefully when we leave government, if we're elected, it will be used by other governments to guide their growth. But equally, because we understand that the Hunter has been neglected, that the Hunter hasn't got its fair share of funding, we've also got a Hunter State Infrastructure Fund, which is going to assist in bringing the Hunter, which is one of our strongest economic drivers in the state, up to scratch when it comes to roads, when it comes to rail, when it comes to other facilities.
Will we, though, be seeing any specific infrastructure projects that money be used for?
Well, we've said in relation to Restart New South Wales, there are some projects that are needed and that are self-evident. So there's some projects in Sydney we've identified, there's some road projects in Western New South Wales we've identified. What we're determined to do, though, in relation to the Hunter Fund, is allow locals to set those priorities. Do
we, though, run the risk of people not being able to make a decision, a stalemate, as we have seen in the past?
I've never seen a body that's got, in the case of the Hunter Infrastructure and Investment Fund, $350 million available to it. I've never seen any body, whether it's a local council or any other organisation, have any reticence in spending money once they've actually got that money.
The Nationals have a good track record on the North Coast and in some parts of the Northern Rivers. In the Hunter, for example, though, we are considered a Labor heartland. But the Coalition is running quite an aggressive campaign here. How, though, do you convince voters who voted Labor all their lives to change their mind?
Well, two things. I think at the last election we saw a shift in the Hunter. We saw a shift with a big assault by independents upon seats like Maitland, Lake Macquarie, Newcastle itself, and the other seats. This time round, we've been very keen over 4 years to work hard. We've put good local candidates, strong local candidates in the field.
Coal seam gas extraction has caused a lot of angst in a lot of areas. Does an O'Farrell government have a plan to alleviate some of those issues?
We do, and that's why 2 months ago we announced a land use planning approach, which has been lacking in New South Wales. There's been no attempt here previously to transparently and openly balance mining versus agriculture or other industries. We want to do that. We want to put an end to simply the handing out of exploration licences, not because it's in the state's interest, but because it was going to help prop up the budget bottom line. And what we're talking about is a process that I think can satisfy, whether it's the Hunter Valley, whether it's the Liverpool Plain farmers, that decisions that are made will be made in the best interest of the state, not in the best interest of one sector or another.
Are you worried that on Saturday a lot of people will be lodging a protest vote against the current government rather than a vote in support of the Coalition?
Well, every election there's a combination of does the government lose or does an opposition win? We'll keep putting forward the positive practical plans that we think can make a difference. That involves additional funding for health, more nurses, more beds, more teachers, more police, and we'll allow people to make their own judgment. My biggest worry going into Saturday, though, is this expectation that there will be change. And whether in the Middle East or in Australia, governments only change if people make them change.
How would you feel if you lost? I mean, it is considered, I guess, an unlosable election.
And every weekend at racetracks and on football paddocks, favourites lose. I'm not running to lose. I'm not running to draw. We saw what happened federally when you end up with a stalemate. We're determined to win, but that's in the hands of the people across this state. And the only message I make is that don't make the mistake of the federal campaign where a vote for independence, a vote for Greens, turned out to be a vote for the return of a Labor government.
Do you think the coalition would be in this position if the Labor government hadn't been so bogged down in scandal?
I do, and I think what we've seen from the Liberal Nationals this term is not just greater unity than we've ever exhibited in the past, not just a greater determination to deliver for the people of New South Wales, but also strong, practical plans that will make a difference in people's lives.
So will you be Premier in 5 days?
Well, I'd like to be Premier in New South Wales. I'd like to lead an honest, stable and competent government, but we can only do that if people vote for real change.
What would you do in your first day?
Well, first day is to set a standard, that says that decisions that are made in the public interest. Decisions won't be about politics, they'll be about what the community needs, and to ensure that maximum resources go to those ends.
Barry O'Farrell, thank you for joining us.
A pleasure.
Talk about everything, you know, fix up the world and all that. It's good fun.
Felt like I just rode smart, and I saw the lappers come in, and I just tried to, push real hard there at the end, and we were good, but not good enough.
If Nathan Tinkler takes over at the Knights, there's speculation he'll do his best to bring Wayne Bennett to Newcastle. But as the mining magnate revealed in his interview with NBN, he's also a fan of Rick Stone, taking his assessment of Cade Snowden very seriously. Stone says he and Nathan have built up a strong rapport.
He feels like that I'm doing a good job, and I'd like to think that I'd be in his plans in the future. Look, if Wayne Bennett decides to come to Newcastle, I'm like 15 other coaches. I don't think I could stop him coming here.
The win over the Cowboys may have eased the pressure on the coach, but it thrust Jared Mullen into the spotlight.
Jared Mullen's been there. I think that give him the right 5'8" and he could be an Origin halfback.
Mark Geyer isn't the only commentator singing Mullen's praises and pushing his case for New South Wales. Stone believes the halfback has matured in the past 18 months, but talk of a return to Origin could be premature.
I probably think it is too early. You'd like to think probably Mitchell Pearce and Carney would be the favourites to be in the halves in the New South Wales team. But look, Mullo's in particular, his kicking game has been outstanding.
Mullen suffered a sternum injury late against the Cowboys and will be on light duties this week in order to be ready for Manly. Zeb Taylor has been cleared to play as well after he entered an early guilty plea for a Grade 2 high tackle on Gavin Cooper. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Clayton Zane played for his country and in leagues in Australia, Norway and Belgium, but as his career began to wind down, he turned his attention to teaching. At an academy in London, the former Socceroo coached the son of American Ellis Short, the billionaire who went on to buy Premier League club Sunderland. The two struck up a friendship, and when Zane set up his own academy here at home, it was only a matter of time before a link with the Black Cats was established.
Having any link to a Premier League club is already hard to come by, but being able to take kids across and open their eyes up to what it's actually like over there in probably the toughest league in the world, it's amazing.
Zane plans to take the first group of Hunter players to England in the next year, giving them a glimpse of Sunderland's facilities as well as a taste of their highly rated academy. Eventually, a small number of our elite juniors could get a helping hand into England's top flight.
Obviously, the pathway is to get to the Jets, but I just want to open kids' eyes to what it's really like in European football.
The 34-year-old also plans to maintain his ties with Chelsea and Queen's Park Rangers, with visits to their games hopefully to be included on the tour. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.